This one's called Statism, the Satanic Religion. So statists are collectivists. What they believe is that your individual free will doesn't matter and all must conform to the collective will of whatever government decides. And there's basically two types of statism. It always leads in authoritarianism. The only difference is whether we end up with a fascist statism, which is a little bit more nationalistic than communist statism. Statists want to replace God, spelt with a capital G, with a new God, which is basically themselves, a false God with a little g. Which is, the little g is basically themselves, their own little mini God. And they therefore believe that they have the divine right to rule over the rest of us and force us to conform to whatever their will, whatever they want us to do. So by supplanting God with themselves, I would say that this is a satanic ideology. So I've just watched this video featuring this guy called Mark Passio. It was a really long one, but very interesting, 2 hours long. And what I'm going to do now is to summarize in no more than 6 or 7 minutes what the main contents of his ideas are. The first pillar is egotism. So basically, Satanists, they believe that the self, yourself, is the only thing that matters. And if harming others is necessary in order for you to achieve your goals, then that's okay. So he referred to like me materialism. So that definitely strikes a chord with me. And something that I've noticed over the last week or two through an interaction with a guy that I used to go to school with is, another kind of element of egotism is that you're quite happy to harm other people. If it means advancing your own cause. So, if you have to physically harm somebody, poison them maybe, then, for you to keep your job and your status and your material trinkets, as an egotist, that is exactly what you want. That is exactly what you'll end up doing. The second core value of Satanism, according to Mark Passio, is moral relativism. So, in summary, then, what this basically means is that human beings, if you're a moral relativist, you define your own, what you think is moral and what's not. The alternative, of course, for me as a Christian, is that I believe that morality is God-given. At its most basic, you could think about the Ten Commandments. Passio, he actually boils down a lot of this to natural law, and what's moral is basically anything that doesn't involve theft. So he talks about, obviously, burgling and stealing other people's stuff is wrong, and it's wrong even if the government is doing it using the tax system to transfer money from person A to person B. That's still theft. Assault. So this guy that I went to school with, he's been assaulting people. According to Passio, it doesn't matter that what he's done has been sort of legal. He's been following official government regulations. It's still immoral because he's breaking fundamental natural law in that he's been physically harming other people. He's been committing the kind of crime of assault. He also talks about coercion, which is also an example of theft. In this case, it's the theft of free will. So again, this guy that I went to school with, you can probably guess what job he does. I can't mention his job because, well, it should be obvious to you, but he's been heavily involved in coercing people to do things that they otherwise wouldn't have done without various threats being issued by the government. So in actual honest fact there, he's been more of an accomplice to coercion, but he's been party to it. Obviously murder, rape, and also another one that he mentions is deception. So if you have been, I suppose another way of looking at this would be fraud. So if you've been deliberately misleading people in order to get them to agree to something that they otherwise wouldn't have agreed to, then that's also an example of theft too. You're stealing truth. You're trying to deliberately mislead people. And I reckon a lot of that is wrapped up with ego, isn't it? Certainly this guy, when I've interacted with him on Twitter, he will just deliberately misinterpret what I've said or answer a completely different question to the one that I asked. And, this is just deception. So another implication of moral relativism is that the government can get to define what is moral, and it can change over time. People who are statists, what they believe is that if there's a government law, that must mean it's moral, which is obviously not the case. So they believe that there's no objective right or wrong, that so long as something's legal, so long as they're following orders, then that must make it morally right. Obviously that's not true. So the third pillar of Satanism is ruthless social Darwinism. So basically it's the survival of the most ruthless. So people, this is a well-known fact, isn't it, that psychopaths and sociopaths end up migrating to the top of hierarchies. So you may be more likely to end up as a hospital consultant or a GP if you're a psychopath, or a senior politician, or a captain of industry. So Satanists who are able to climb up the hierarchies in society, they believe that that their ability to do that is indicative of their superior genes. So therefore they have a moral right to control others. Satanists would believe, well, my genes are superior, you see, because I've managed to get to high levels of society. That by definition means that I'm superior. That by definition means that it's morally right for me to impose upon others, coerce others. It's morally right for me to try to deceive others. And, you can see this all around you. I guess the other thing to say about this social Darwinism is that many of these people actually believe that they are best placed to define what constitutes a social good. So they would say, well, look, okay, I may be behaving like an autocrat, but I'm paternalistic. Maybe it's time for this person to disappear because maybe the net benefit of them carrying on for the collective good of society, it's just not there. So maybe they need to go. But that's perfectly moral, you see, because I actually am making that decision to get rid of somebody on the basis of the greater social good. So again, you can see the links to collectivism. Your rights as an individual don't exist. You're just a pawn on a chessboard that these sort of Satanists believe that they can just move around for their own shits and giggles, using a crude phrase. They'll dress it all up though with this. I'm only doing this for the greater social good. But the crucial thing here is that they're defining what the greater social good is, and because they believe in moral relativism, it's all pretty fluid, this situation. So it might have been. Well, you can talk about some of the greatest crimes against humanity that have ever happened. The people that have done those crimes against humanity, they've always tried to justify it in terms of, well, it was a moral thing to do. We had to do it for the greater social good. And you can see this now today, certainly. The fourth and last pillar of Satanism is eugenics. So eugenics is all about controlling who's able to pass their genes on and who's not. So the people who are Satanists, who are at the, high up in these hierarchies within society, as I say, because they've got there themselves, they believe that their genes are superior to other people who aren't psychopaths, who haven't tried to climb up the ladder. So they believe that they should be allowed to pass on their genes, but you shouldn't. Furthermore, these people, they're naturally authoritarian, so they don't do dissent at all. So I can see this again with this guy that I used to go to school with. He's tried on numerous occasions to try to sort of say, well, I'm inciting violence. And what his game plan is maybe to contact some government agency, or maybe just more likely actually to intimidate me into silence. And yeah, basically this is, they don't do dialogue, they don't do dissent. What they do instead is just ruthlessly shut it down. And yeah, Satanists, their main weapon, of course, is starvation. That's basically how the communist regime dealt with people who they didn't like and they wanted to be got rid of. Obviously, in more recent times, you know, you've had people like me, Veritas Vincent, Tim Fair, loads and loads of people, similar channels to this, who have basically, and people who've rejected the treatment, let's call it, that they were coerced or attempted to be coerced into having. So these people, right, they're not with the program. So again, you know, you can think about Pol Pot in Cambodia. If this, you know, if this isn't stopped, then, you know, the natural endpoint of this is that these people will again liquidate dissenters, remove them from circulation, maybe initially in camps, maybe quarantine camps initially, might come up with some funny name for them rather than a concentration camp or a gulag. You know, that wouldn't be good PR for the rest of the peasantry. But that's basically where it ends. It ends with genocide. That's what Satanists are into. And what I would say as a Christian is that that's not a surprise either, because Satan hates humanity, because humanity is being made by God in his image, and Satan is deeply jealous of that. He doesn't have his own creations. Satan just has AI. So in a nutshell then, Satanists, they use eugenics as a means to an end. Only the compliant are allowed to breed and pass on their genes. We deserve to reproduce, you don't. So how do we stop these people? Well, again, I would agree with what this Mark Passio says in this 2-hour video, which is basically we need to be a beacon for truth, honesty, integrity, and we need to reject these people who go around like stealing private property, assaulting people, harming people, coercing people, murdering people, raping people, deceiving people. We need to not do any of that stuff, which again, you know, for me as a Christian, it's basically exactly what Jesus was saying, and it's not too dissimilar from the Ten Commandments. In fact, all of the Ten Commandments would be there, wouldn't they? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not bear false witness. So that's all about, you know, you shouldn't try to deceive people. In fact, they're all there, aren't they? Thou shalt not have false gods. And a false god would be like worshipping mummy government, or maybe, you know, your ego is so out of control that you end up worshipping yourself. Yourself becomes your own mini little god. So yeah, that's all I want to say today. So God bless. I'll put a link to the video, the Mark Passio one that lasts 2 hours. It's on Odyssey, so that's not a surprise, you know, because it's just going to get stuff like that. Just gets nuked PDQ on Gulag Tube. So please come over to Odyssey. There's no adverts on there, you know. That's a good reason enough in itself. I found those adverts just so annoying. So yeah. And also, I did earlier in the week, I did another video that's going to just stay on Odyssey. It's an Odyssey exclusive, so and it will remain that way. And from time to time, I will just do that. Yeah, and that's all I want to say. So God bless.